Thank you for joining me on episode 389 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Winston Clemens, motivational speaker and limitation breaker. I challenge you to invest yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to recognize your limitations are an illusion and develop resilience is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship podcast with my friend Scott Mader.
You can actually, if you step up and you're one of those unusual leaders who truly has the best interest of your people in mind, who really steps out and takes the bullet for your people, and whenever there's kudos to go around, you share them widely and freely, but when there's blame to be taken, you take the bulk of it for yourself.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about developing your influence through stewarding your talent, I talk with you about why serving is the first step to leadership. How serving doesn't lessen your influence, but actually increases it. And how to cultivate a servant mindset.
You've heard me talk about developing your talent, and one of the best ways to do that is through books. But if you're like most people today, it's hard to find the time to read. And that's why today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Go to inspiredstewardship.com/audible to sign up, and you can get a 30-day free trial. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can pick one and listen your way to developing your talents via Audible. That's inspiredstewardship.com/audible to get your free trial and listen to great books the same way you're listening to this podcast.
In Monday's episode, Dow and I were talking a little bit, and Dow mentioned the book Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why serving is the first real step towards leadership. You know, all too often in society now, we think about leaders as somebody who's grabbed the top and who's out there for themselves. They're up there in a way that they're controlling others, often through threats and through intimidation. They're taking more than what they deserve. They're taking more than their fair share, and they're taking it from people. And there are definitely people in the world who do that. There are lots of people who take advantage of others and use positional authority or other forms of authority to take control, to be abusive and abusing of their hierarchy. And the truth is we get mad whenever we see that. You know, Simon Sinek in Leaders Eat Last has a book about, or a chapter rather, about why we have leaders. And he talks about this idea that, especially in America today, we have this popular thought of everyone being equal. And his point is that, in truth, we're not as equal as we feel like we should be, and probably never will be. That there is a need, at least right now, for a social hierarchy. That without some level of hierarchy, you have a tendency for everyone to just constantly fight for their own thing, and it leaves us divided and enemies and bitter and attacking each other. But in a hierarchy situation, when you recognize someone as a leader, then you have a tendency to step back and allow that higher status individual to serve themselves first, to get access to more food or other things. But that higher status was supposed to come at a price. See, it wasn't that the leader took those things. It was that the leader was given those things. In exchange, that alpha person, that leader, would step forward and take on enemies for the tribe. They would be stronger or smarter or more able to face danger and protect the rest of the tribe, the rest of the group. And in a way, though, our society now, we've turned that around and we think because you're a leader, you deserve these things, as opposed to because you are leading, we'll give you these things. You see the difference. One is taking, one is being given. Fame and financial wealth should be a byproduct of leadership, not the way that we achieve it. Leadership is a choice to serve others with or without formal rank or position. That's actually the definition that Simon Sinek leaves. And if you want to enjoy the perks of leadership without fulfilling the obligations, then we see that, and those people are poor leaders, they're weak leaders, and they are often the ones that you get most bitter and angry about. When you see a CEO who gets a huge severance package and they get it at the expense of firing thousands of employees just in chasing the bottom line, and they don't take care of their people, they don't actually really grow the company for long-term benefit. They look at the short-term gain, and you see them get millions of dollars in bonuses. It angers you because instinctively you know that's not what good leadership is. They shouldn't be doing this to get things for themselves. They should be doing that because it serves the greater good. It serves the greater good of the company, the employee, the customer, the country, the world. But all too often we don't see that. And see, this is the truth. Real leadership, servant leadership, doesn't lessen your influence, but increases it. You can actually, if you step up and you're one of those unusual leaders who truly has the best interest of your people in mind, who really steps out and takes the bullet for your people, and whenever there's kudos to go around, you share them widely and freely. But when there's blame to be taken, you take the bulk of it for yourself. You take the bullet for your people. When you do that, people notice that too. Think about it. If you've ever served under that kind of leader, you would walk through fire for them. You would charge hell with water guns for them. It increases your influence when you serve with that mindset. So how do you actually cultivate a servant mindset? How do you actually recognize that need and that ability and build that trust for other people? You know, the truth is you don't do it by establishing a bunch of rules. Instead, you do it by trusting people and by enabling and empowering people to do their own thing, to do the best that they can do. So in Leaders Eat Last, Simon lays out a few practical tips. First off, he admits the fact that it's really hard to do this in many cultures and many organizations within many groups, because the truth is often real leadership is punished by those who are weak leaders around you. But you should still actually try to do a few practical things. Number one, you have to keep it real. You have to bring people together, preferably together in person. In person is always best. If you can't meet with people in person, then at least get video where they can see your eyes, they can hear your voice, they can see your body language. If you're upset, they can see you being upset. Try to keep the level of groups manageable. I've talked before about how we really can have about 150 relationships max. So that means if you have a group or an organization that's bigger than that, you need to subdivide it into smaller groups so that no one person really feels like they have to keep in their head more than about 150 connections. You need to meet with the people that you help. Get out and work beside them. If you're a leader, you got to get out of your office and actually get down in the nitty-gritty and sometimes do the job that other people do. And you can reward your people with time and with authority and responsibility as much or more than money. The truth is just giving people a bonus doesn't help. You've got to give people the ability to be accountable for their own job. And you yourself, you need to have honesty and integrity. You need to mean what you say and say what you mean. Even if you're delivering bad news, you've got to deliver it with honesty, because people look for and expect honesty from true leaders. So if you begin to cultivate that servant mindset of really looking to serve your people, to bring people together instead of splitting them apart, to lead not through internal threats, not through fear, but to lead by bringing people together to face together that external enemy and to work together for a bigger mission and bigger set of values than just having a job, then you can be a servant leader and you will develop more influence, not less. Notice nothing in this definition of leadership said you have to be put in a position of authority and leadership. You can do this from any position within a company, within a family. You don't have to be the person with the title and the corner office to be a leader. So look for ways that you can be a servant leader today. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of talent, you can go over to inspiredstewardship.com/talent and sign up for our 5-week series on the stewardship of talent. Or if you're in the U.S., you can text 44222 talent tips. That's talent tips to 44222 and get those tips. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.